And despite the turmoil in Egypt, its leaders are working on so-called indirect talks between Israel and Hamas. They agreed to a ceasefire last Wednesday. Now they're negotiating, and that comes the tough part. Hamas wants Israel to end its Gaza blockade. Many restrictions had previously been lifted, but Gaza residents still can't get much needed building materials. Israel wants an end to Iranian arms smuggling to Hamas through underground tunnels. Those tunnels are along the Egyptian border. Amos Guiora is a law professor and an author on international security issues, and he joins us now for more on this story. In your estimation, what is the biggest threat facing Israel right now, Professor?
I think, Lee, first of all, thanks for having me on the show. Yeah. I think there are a couple of threats at play here. One is clearly Egypt to where. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Two is the rearmament of Hamas. You're right, there's a ceasefire in play, but arms will be all but guaranteed coming through the tunnels that you just mentioned. And obviously the Iranian question. You take all three, it's a pretty complicated triangle.
Can we really expect the Egyptians to be honest brokers in this peace negotiation?
Well, you know, it comes down to mutual self-interest. And if the Egyptians determine that there is an Egyptian self-interest in being honest brokers, then the answer is yes. If the Egyptians determine that they don't have an interest, self-interest in moving the peace process forward or the ceasefire forward, then probably not. That's why that's how I began, you know, Egypt to where.
Right, yeah. You live in Israel. What do you think on the street the Israeli citizens are thinking about all of this? Are they more interested in there not being rockets being fired back and forth, or do they really want an honest deal here in these negotiations?
I think it's a great question with multiple answers. One, I think there's a sense of wait and see. Two, life goes on, right? We can't sit around and wait for the rockets to fall. Three, want to see if the Egyptians are indeed going to be the honest brokers you mentioned. Four, to see what's going to be the role of the United States moving forward. And five, how is Hamas going to enforce the ceasefire on itself, and not only on itself? Remember that in Gaza, there's not only Hamas, there's also the Islamic Jihad. The question is, can Hamas also influence them? I mean, at this point, I think from the perspective of the Israeli public, probably more questions than answers.
We talked at the beginning of our program about Mohammed Morsi and taking these extreme powers, and you heard al-Baradei say the country's in shambles. Did Morsi overestimate his power, you think?
It's interesting because the whole point of the Arab Spring was to undo Mubarak, right? And exactly as Baradei mentioned, it's like the new pharaoh. It's, you know, different sheriff by a different name, or same sheriff by a different name. And these extraordinary powers he's given himself, doing, in essence, away with the judiciary and the legislature, may have overstepped, and I think probably surprised by the reaction of the judiciary and the legislature and the reaction in the street, which is, I assume, why he requested a meeting with the nation's judiciary.
You think he'll have to step down over this?
No.
Or he'll survive?
He'll survive. I think there's also a vested American interest that he stay in power, because that gives a sense of stability, and I need not tell you that the Middle East is extraordinarily unstable, and having Morsi step down would just enhance the instability.
Well, we certainly appreciate you providing your insights. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks so much for having me.
Safe travels.
My pleasure. Thank you.